upgrades.
And welcome back for the final time, ladies and gentlemen, of our review recap of the FX on Hulu show, Class of '09. We're here to bring you the final episode titled Graduation. And it's your boy here, Lou, with my guy, Sam, because he does not deserve to be called Supercell because this show doesn't deserve that type of attention anymore. But we are here to bring you this final episode of, I want to say this is not a season one. Is this a season one or was this a limited series? I want to say this was a limited series.
I think initially, I think we'll talk about it. I think initially this was supposed to be a season one, but I think when we got to like episode 5, I looked and I was like, it says limited series now. And that makes a lot of sense for some of the rush
decisions that are made here.
Yeah.
So for the limited series, Class of '09 here. Now, quickly, let's just jump into it because it's not a lot to jump into here because, boy, this was the most straightforward episode of the season. And the episode starts off with the agents being sworn in during graduation. And I think it's Gabriel made remarks to the recruits that the final test is what they make of themselves once they get into the field. I'm just going to ask you, what did you think about starting this episode off that way and starting off with the graduation before we go into the past? Well, not the past, the present, and everything that happens.
So it was really interesting because I was like, I kind of wished we would have played this story out linear, where it's like we got a good amount. I mean, even just maybe the first season, like be all in the past, and we progressively see them what they're gonna be. Maybe like small little glimpses of them in the future, but just staying in one place. Because I was like, okay, I really like this because then it's showing certain things. Like I think when Teo almost quit, is this the same episode? Yeah. When Teo
it was episode beforehand. You mean when he got his selection?
Yeah. That was last episode, wasn't it? Yeah. In this episode, he actually did kind of go through with it, and I think he was kind of like accepting it. But they all, matter of fact, that's right. So they all, sorry guys, it's been a while since I've seen the episode. So when they went all and got up, kind of telling their, their stories about what they wanted to be and stuff like that. I don't know. Like I did like it, but I was like, this is weird to do it now. This is a weird place because I was kind of like, if this is the graduation, why are you spending this much time? Like, how are we going to close out this season very quickly? I was like, there's no way they're going to end this season now. There's not enough time because I think we spent like a good 30 minutes, right? At least.
No. The graduation is like a good 15.
It was the present.
Chunk of the. The present is the one where we spend the most time in, but the graduation is kind of really quick because again, all we do see is them get to graduation, and then we get to see Teo's mom meeting his wife for the first time. And then we get the backstory on Lennox fully, and that his parents weren't even able to make it to the graduation, and we get Poet visiting her mother's grave after the graduation. I was just confused because besides them graduating, I didn't know what this scene set up. It felt like it was attempting to set up something that will make you care, but there's really nothing there. It just felt like, okay, so they graduated and scene. Right. And for this show, to spend as much time as it did in the past to go over the lives of them, you would think at this moment you would get a little more explanation on why they made the decisions that they made in the present, because that's
Right.
the most important thing here is the present. And speaking of the present being the most important thing,
Yeah.
next up we get Teo as he's you can say going over the incident that led to him being stabbed
Yep.
and filling the wound out and calling on the system to find out who did it, only to find out that the system has certain names blocked out of the system. And this is when he goes to see the current director, who tells him this is a security measure he had to agree to. Not only that, we clearly see here that the director knew exactly who attacked Teo.
Yeah, absolutely.
And in this moment, instead of him relinquishing that information to Teo, he tells Teo, I'm leaving and you're taking over as director, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Two things here. One, this show did not tell us at all, or even hint to the possibility of people being blocked out of the system, because if they did, I think it would have been way more interesting.
Yep.
Two, nothing's ever explained to us just how high in rank Teo is in the FBI.
Yep.
For us, people who know better, that you can't just step down and automatically say he's clearly the next candidate when presidents appoint directors of the FBI.
Right.
They don't care about your qualifications. What did you just think about this whole setup?
So weird because internalize it is one of the most interesting pathways for Teo as a character. I did like the fact that his mind went, I've been stabbed. They cannot break me. I'm going to push forward no matter what. And I was kind of like, well, Teo, I think you're blind to what's about to happen. They're literally about to give you all this power and cage you. If they're telling
Yeah.
you that they can specifically pinpoint who they want, then that breaks the whole system anyway. Like you're basically getting everything you want in a cage. Like you're locking yourself back in the same exact bondage you're trying to keep the world out of.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, that reality I thought was very fascinating. I did personally feel like it would have been dope for them to have kind of been like, okay, and he asked the question, I'll take this, but I want you to tell me who was the one that locked these names in. Like I was kind of like,
Yeah.
Teo would be the one to fish. It's like, because the only thing that he's getting is name and rank, but he doesn't have any control over. But at the very least, I think his mind was just, honestly, like I think he was caught up. I think he was caught up in the rush and fear, and he was like, "I'm willing to take this blind eye and be controlled to a capacity," which that's never been Teo's mo. And I was
Mm-hmm.
kind of like, man, Teo, ask them who was the one that did it. Because even if you can't do anything now, maybe later on you can do something about it. But as far as like the irony of it, he gets all the way what he wants, but he's still not in any kind of place of control because people still are changing the conditions of what that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And because like, that leads into the rainbow scene, which we'll talk about in a second. But I did like that. And it led me to believe that the director wasn't in any kind of control either. Because if he already knew he was about to step down, I was like, they stepping him down. He's not just willing doing it. Like somebody's pushing the buttons with this whole entire
Mm-hmm.
thing. This is all orchestrated. Because I think was it 2 episodes ago, he was like, look, man, you start messing with that money, they're gonna push back. He didn't say you're gonna get killed, but he said that there's gonna be ramifications or something like that. And Teo pushed, that's the result. But I did like that. I like that aspect of it. They just didn't go into it, unfortunately.
Yeah. It should have been a subplot there that they should have pinpointed and focused on. And the key was they broke him,
Yeah.
because that's all they wanted to do in the first place.
Yep.
Is they needed to break him. And once they broke him, they got him to do everything he was fighting against.
Yep.
As you see in the following scene with him and Vivian, when he's talking about being able to fix the system from the inside, but you can't fix a system that's already corrupt.
Right.
And what happened is they corrupted an AI system, because
Yep.
the point that I can dictate certain people who could never pop up as suspects is absolutely no difference than Teo feeling powerful people have always gotten away with stuff. All you did was create a system that allowed them to do the exact same thing all over again.
Yep.
And his need to prove that he was the person for the job is what they used against him.
Yep.
He used against him the point that he thought, like, only I could do this.
Yeah.
His ambition became his weakness.
Yep.
And when they saw it, they exploited it. Because I'm almost firm to believe that the person who set up him getting stabbed was the director.
Makes sense.
You needed to break Teo, and they broke him. But
Yeah.
speaking of being broken, in his next scene with Vivian, as he's telling her that she wants to leave, and he's telling her everything that he feels the reason he should stay. And in the end, telling her, you can leave, but I'm not leaving this job.
Right.
This is the foreshadowing that we see in the future when we now see why he lost her.
Yeah.
What do you think about how hard he pursued to keep her, to the extent he was willing to quit the FBI at the beginning because he didn't want to go to the location because he didn't think she would go with him, to now, after everything that happened, after he can finally reach what he feels is the truly top, the pinnacle of what he wants to achieve, that he's willing to throw her and everything else away for it.
Yeah, it kind of went back to that Batman parable. You either die a hero or you live on to see yourself become the villain. Like
Yep.
that's literally what happened to him. Because honestly, I think that the more and more she's kind of been like irritated by him, the conversation with the mom, this confrontation right here,
Mhm.
like his mind goes, "You're keeping me from protecting us. You're keeping me from protecting the world. You're keeping me from fulfilling my destiny."
Yep.
And he used that as justification to say, okay, now you're not even walking into my destiny. I need to leave you back. It's so weird because this is what Poet did with her fiance. I don't know what the heck he was. I don't remember what he was, but Poet basically kind of was like, yeah, you're not going to stop me from being
It was her
this.
fiance. He didn't believe you didn't believe in me, so why would I need to be with you?
And she used that as justification to do what she
Yeah.
decided she wanted to do. And I think that the therapist was like, well, you could have just dipped. You didn't have to. She's like, no, he wasn't part of the program. He was trying to stop progress, and that's in that same flawed perspective is something that Teo got eventually. Even though he was trying to be opposite of Poet, he ended up, unfortunately,
But he ended up
going down the
being
same.
worse than Poet. Poet
Yeah,
thing was this guy never believed in her. Vivian believing him wasn't the issue. Her
yeah.
issue was someone broke in our house and tried to kill you. And
Mm-hmm.
the answer to this is for you to,
Go
and not only that, they know who did it, and you prefer to be bought off than get the truth.
right.
That was her problem.
Yeah,
And again, Teo fell for a hook, line, and sinker.
yeah,
And right after this falling into it is next him kind of, well, not kind of, destroying his relationship with Amos as he goes to him in the system room and let him know certain people will be completely taken out. As Amos tells him, the goal of the system was for everyone to be equal. If you do this, there's no way this system's going to work because you can't exempt people from crimes. What did you think about that conversation between them two, especially after we see the links that Amos went to expose everything earlier on in this season?
so I think it was a very great scene and it made all the sense in the world. But the problem and the flaw in this show is that they rushed this whole entire moment, and I'm
Yep.
never going to get any moment to show the mental descent of Ramos because of
Yes.
this action. I'm never going to
Mhm.
see the mental descent of Hour because of the action. And it kind of makes, because while I was watching the episode, I was like, oh, okay, we're going to eventually see Ramos, start to slowly descend. But no, they rushed it. And so the
Yeah.
scene in the moment was pivotal. It was so important. And I was like, okay, now I'm going to see what led Ramos to do what he felt he needed to do.
Yeah.
But it was kind of like, yeah. And it's weird because when Teo was doing it, he looked like he was reluctant to do it, but he was like, the ends justify the means. It's going to give me what I need. And you can put down or shut down. You want to go to jail, you want to go home, basically. But,
and again, speaking of things rushed through, and the reason why I'm not talking about them is because they rushed through everything with Hour and Poet in this entire episode. There was no nuance in any of their conversations. It was so straightforward to, hey, well, Tails going to change everything when he becomes director, and Hour objecting to it. It's the same song and dance we saw through the whole season. And amazingly, in these moments, you expected more, and it gave us nothing new or nothing even memorable to have a conversation with them. And that's kind of odd because of the way they built up Poet and Honor's relationship through this entire season.
yeah.
That for the present, that to be their conversation was kind of ridiculous. But then we see the progression of the system. And this is another part completely rushed through. They literally did a montage to show us all the years, all the white collar crime that Teo was getting, all the voiceover work that they gave us of how the system turned instead of showing us. And this is why this feels so rushed. Because you could almost do an entire season of this system turning bad.
Yeah.
And instead, they give it to us in all of 2 minutes about the problems with the system. And then we get to the new director of the FBI. And then we get a situation where Vivian is arrested for a passage out of a new book that's not been released. What do you think about this whole setup? Them speed racing through everything that we've been waiting to learn about the system to get to this now present as we get all the way to the future. And we see Teo with Vivian as Vivian is about to get arrested for thoughts that she put in a book.
Man, look, bro. I feel like they might have took some episodes out of this joint, bro. Like ain't no gosh darn way that I felt the same exact way when the FBI building got like torn down. Like I felt the same exact way about that as I do from this point forward. Because I was like, you set up a character like Mark in an organization like him just for we never to see him ever again, and there's no ramifications to that action. To this, and I was like, you're gonna use 2 minutes of a montage, bro, and you're not gonna show the progression. That was when I was kind of like, I was like, look, hold on, bro. All y'all got to do is end the season right here, and let's move forward to show where this progresses. Now, maybe y'all should have kept it linear, but I mean, it's weird because I've seen it been done better. Like the first season of Westworld did this, and it was like, and still it worked better than how this is. It's almost like they attempted to do what Westworld did, but they lost the budget, or they had to cut episodes, or they couldn't bring the cast back. One or the other happened because the moment that the Ramos conversation happened, honestly, the episode should have ended with, Teo like moving into the director position, and then we seeing him fast forward to his home with his wife, and then they knock on the door and the police are coming. End of episode. That's it. Like, because everything from this point forward, I mean, I'm gonna bash this, unfortunately, you guys. I apologize. Because it's a rush job. It looks terrible. Yeah. It's tacky. Sorry, we'll get there. I'll let you go. Sorry.
Here's the messed up part. There's literally little to nothing left in this episode. And this is the problem with this episode here. It feels so rushed. The next thing we get is Vivian on trial.
We could have been a dope moment. Could have been a great
the trial should have been one episode into itself. Right. Was this trial should have been?
Yeah, because I was kind of like they could have went back into the past to show her, just because we haven't seen her. We haven't seen her,
and we don't know what her thoughts of this system even are, right? Because it's not told to us. But I'm gonna just give the rest of the episode, and then we're gonna go back. So after this, Vivian's in the courtroom. after she's arrested and she's on trial, she speaks her mind about the system that we never knew she hated the system as much as it comes across in this room. And before she's judged by the system, the crew gets together, makes the decision to go to the original system, use the card that Amos gave them to reset the system, taking away all the exemptions from the system, which leads to now the new director shutting down the system because if there's no exemptions to the system, they can't use the system. And that's basically how the series ends after this happening here. So I'm just gonna ask you, we both can agree that they sped through this. It is horrible how they sped through this last episode because it almost makes you feel like you forgot something or you missed something completely and you didn't. They just sped ball through this episode. So I'm going to ask you, one, what do you think about the final moments of this episode? And what do you think about the way they completely rushed into every storyline down to now Poet and Lennox are getting married? Excuse me? Like, none of that was even like addressed that they got together to that extent.
It was some boo boo, bro. I don't know a nice way to say it. So, like when Vivian, right, was like going into and being in prison, like they took her essence, not her essence, they took her data of who she is and made a hologram off of it. Like,
because human bodies have data inside of it that you can make a hologram off of.
We've never seen this. This technology isn't explained, and so it's like every person that they're detaining, just like, and also the other thing, the big thing about all this, and I'll talk about the whole Poet thing in Linux because that was a whole mess. The fact of the truth is that they basically is like, okay, yeah, we're shutting down the system, but every person that the system has freaking locked up, we're letting go. And you don't understand the ramifications of that, and you're not going to go into.
Means you're letting go actual killers that you may actually caught before they actually killed someone.
Because I was thinking, okay, yes, let the system burn, but like, what does that mean?
Here's the more messed up part. They all were in a courtroom after being arrested when it was announced that the system was shut down. So you're telling me all this happened in 24 hours? So in 24 hours, they made this decision. Is ridiculous. Because once you do something like that, I would assume once they're arrested, they would be tried. And then someone will have to meet to make the decision. We can't go forward with the system without any exemptions. Guess what? We see none of this discussion because that should have been discussion for a while. Because what government that was already willing to do the things that this system was doing would just shut it down and not think of, hey, let's first see if we get those exemptions back into the system.
Right, because
and why wouldn't they be able to get it back in there when they put them in there without Amos knowing about it?
Right, because it never explains who are the person that are on top making those. Because my question is like, okay, what would have been a better explanation is that, okay, we never talked about the outside of the United States.
Yes.
So I was like, okay, maybe it's a whole world situation where they're, that would have made more sense. Because then I was like, okay, but they rushed through all of that.
How is the rest of the world operating when the United States are the only one using this system?
Right.
What are the ramifications on a worldwide scale that they're using this system? Because would the system stop with just crime? Would it start with war crimes? Would it start with potential threats worldwide? Like, would other countries adapt this system because they see the success rate of it? None of that is talked about. Like, it feels so empty. It felt like they wanted to make a self-contained story, but unfortunately, the plot of the story can't be self-contained. It is humanly impossible to self-contain this.
No, that should have been multiple
they
seasons.
Didn't know what they were doing with it. This was a bad remake or reimagining of Minority Report. Like all I was missing was precogs. Like if Honor was a precog, I would have said, "Oh, okay, this is Minority Report." But instead, we get something that it's just so disjointed, and it's kind of messed up because it ruins a great performance by Brian Tyree Henry.
Brian
He's
killed it, bro. His character is
phenomenal
great.
in this show.
He's so good.
Like even I'm making sure I'm saying her name right. Rooney Mara?
Rooney.
Saying that right?
Mara,
Yeah.
yeah.
She's great in the acting isn't the problem with this show.
It's
It's
the way
just
they
they're
handle the
acting with
story and the
no
characters. Yeah.
they're acting with no script. It feels like like Zack Snyder wrote this. It's just so disjointed. And it's like it just makes no sense. And that's the problem with this story. Because I think this show had the potential to be great. But I think also it had the potential to be at least 3 seasons.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. Do
Maybe
you think that
breathe a
this was
little bit.
initially supposed to be multiple season, and then all of a sudden they said we got to cut the budget?
I don't think so because of the cast. I think they made the mistake and wrote this as a limited series, and they were just in for it and realized they can't fix it. Like you're not gonna. This cast would be way too expensive to attempt to continue for 2 more seasons.
That's what I was thinking. That's what I was exactly. I was thinking.
But you would need 2 more seasons to let this play out perfectly and get how all these characters evolve, and also cut some of these characters away. Because in all honesty, besides Poet and Teo, is it another character that's needed?
So that was
Because
what
Honor, they don't give Honor enough for me to care about her. They give me nothing from Lennox. They give me a hell of a backstory that should make him interesting, and then give you nothing of him. They killed Markov, and it was supposed to have this important impact on the show. Guess what? He literally disappeared for 4 of the episodes on the show. I don't even know the importance of that character. The trainers were more important than it. They killed one of the trainers, and we never talk about like
right. Did Drew actually die? Did she die?
We don't know. I'm just assuming she did because they never really tell us.
But so this is my thing with Hour and Lennox. They screwed those characters, and they inadvertently or deliberately screwed Poet at the same time, because I got to the end of this and I was like, did you just introduced an idea of a relationship with Poet and Hour, showed a great progression of chemistry that would make sense, but then just cut it, and it's like it just doesn't matter, and there's like a hollow shell when I look at Poet now, because I'm like, you really just used this girl and then forsake her whole life, her system, and then was like, yeah, I'm still gonna screw you again. I'm gonna sleep in a bed with you, and then I'm gonna go and marry Lennox.
And then I'm gonna marry Lennox because that's who I really want to be with. But nothing, no signs pointed to that's the person I really want to be with.
Nothing there of not only chemistry, but it's no substance there for Lennox, because they make Lennox the person to pine over Poet, but I don't get anything from that. I don't have any value there. I don't even root between, like, it's not like an Edward and Jacob situation. I could care less about either one of these relationships because they didn't do them right. They didn't give enough serviceable value for Hour and Poet's romantic relationship or their actual friendship. And then with Lennox, if I was him, I don't know why is he still pawing all over this. Like, it just, it doesn't work.
I think they say he's been divorced 3 times.
But again, every single time that happens, I never see it. I never see his relationships. I never see
we never see him get to move on. And he moved on with another recruit, and we don't get to see even this recruit that he moved on with.
Bruh, we didn't even get to see them get their eye and arm thing. Like, I was like, I never got to even see that. Like, their rehab.
We don't even. They got this technology in 2023. Where's the technology that my eye can do that in 2023? I wear glasses. I would replace both of these now if you gave me computer eyes. Like, it makes no sense. It just. What are your final thoughts on the limited series brought to us by FX on Hulu, Class of 09?
I'm going to say it diplomatically. This was a great idea, great cast, great acting in certain aspects, at times very thrilling and engaging, but it just dropped the ball. It didn't give me enough fleshed out time. It should have been multiple seasons, and I think that each different segment of time should have been its own season. I think that would have served
Yeah.
this and saved this as a whole from a narrative standpoint. And I mean, maybe they would have had to get rid of certain characters as it progressed, but some characters didn't need to be in like the past or the present. It could have just stayed with two characters per. But
yeah,
woulda, shoulda, coulda.
if you ever saw the movie The Sixth Day with Arnold Schwarzenegger, that's what this is. And what I mean by that is it's such a good premise that just is not executed up to the status of the premise and the performances. So here I would say whoever created this project let the actors down. And because of that, we got a muddled series that is so, the premise should have been memorable, and yet the execution wasn't. And unfortunately, this is the weakest limited series I've seen from FX. As the reason why we were excited to review it is because they're normally great at these, and this just happened to be the time that they're not great at it. But we are great at reviewing content. So you can catch every review from this season on teamjvs.com. You go to, which will lead us to a YouTube link, or just check us out on YouTube and watch them all. Just in case you watch the series late and you want two people who can talk about this entire series for 8 episodes, go check out our reviews. Also, check out everything that we have coming your way. We got some exciting stuff come. Clearly, some more reviews. Clearly, some stuff from the Tribeca Film Festival as we're gearing up for the biggest film festival of the year, plus gearing up for San Diego Comic-Con. So there's going to be a bunch of content coming your way. This has been another production from Team JVS. Peace, people.
Stay tuned. We'll be back.
Falling out the top of